Every morning, the sun was just beginning to rise when Mr. James pulled out of his small, quiet neighborhood and started his daily drive to school. The old car he drove was far from shiny or new. It was a small, dusty, and worn-out vehicle that had seen better days many years ago. The paint was chipped, the tires a little flat, and the engine sometimes coughed and rattled on the road. But to Mr. James, the car was more than just an old machine, it was his faithful companion. Mr. James was a teacher at Willowbrook Middle School. He loved his job more than anything else. Every day, he walked into the school with a smile and a heart full of hope. He taught English and enjoyed helping his students learn new words, write stories, and understand the power of reading. But no matter how hard he worked in class, there was one thing that made his days difficult: the whispers and giggles from some students about the car he drove. When Mr. James parked his old car in the teacher's parking lot, a few students passing by would stop and stare. Some would whisper to their friends, pointing at the dent on the door or the faded paint. A few teachers noticed too, and sometimes made quiet jokes in the staff room when he wasn't around. But Mr. James never said anything. He kept his head high and focused on what mattered most: his students and their learning. Inside the classroom, Mr. James was the same gentle and patient teacher he always was. He greeted each student with kindness, helped those who struggled with reading, and always had an encouraging word ready for anyone feeling down. But at recess, when students talked freely in the hallways, the old car became the subject of their jokes. One day, as Mr. James walked through the schoolyard, a group of students laughed loudly just out of earshot. They called the car a fossil and joked that it looked like it might fall apart any minute. Mr. James heard enough to know it was about him. For a moment, his smile faded, and he felt a little hurt. But he reminded himself of something his father had once told him: respect is earned by what you do, not what you own. The car was more than just old metal to Mr. James. It was a memory of his father, who had given it to him many years ago. His father was a simple man, who worked hard every day and taught Mr. James the value of honesty, hard work, and humility. That car had carried Mr. James through many hard times, and he took good care of it as a way to remember his father's lessons. Despite the teasing, Mr. James never let the laughter stop him from being the best teacher he could be. He believed that true strength came from kindness and patience. He knew that material things could be lost or broken, but the love and care he gave to his students could never be taken away. One morning, after parking his car, Mr. James noticed a new student standing by the school gate. She looked nervous and shy, clutching her backpack tightly. Mr. James smiled warmly and walked over to greet her. "Good morning," he said softly. "Are you new here?" The girl nodded, her eyes wide but hopeful. "Yes, I just moved here," she replied quietly. "Welcome to Willowbrook Middle School," Mr. James said kindly. "If you need any help, just ask me or any of the teachers. We're here for you." The girl smiled faintly and followed the group of students heading inside the school. Mr. James watched her for a moment and felt a small flicker of hope. Maybe, he thought, she wouldn't care about his old car. Maybe she would see the person beneath the dents and scratches. As the day went on, Mr. James taught his classes with his usual passion. He read stories aloud, helped students with their essays, and listened carefully when they spoke. Yet, every now and then, he could feel the eyes of some students drifting toward the window, looking at his car in the parking lot as if it were a strange object. Still, Mr. James refused to let those looks change how he treated his students or how he felt about himself. He knew he was more than a car, and he hoped that one day, his students would understand that too. At lunch, Mr. James sat quietly in the teacher's lounge, eating his simple sandwich. From the corner of his eye, he could see a group of students laughing and whispering just outside the window. He guessed they were talking about him again. It was hard not to feel lonely sometimes, but he reminded himself that his job was important. His students needed him, and he needed to be strong for them. Before the afternoon classes began, Mr. James took a moment outside to look at his car. The sun shone gently on the cracked windshield and the worn-out seats inside. He touched the hood lightly and smiled. "We'll keep going, old friend," he said softly. For Mr. James, the car was not about pride or showing off. It was about remembering where he came from and what mattered most: hard work, respect, and kindness. As the school bell rang, Mr. James walked back inside, ready to face whatever the day might bring. The school day was busy, full of lessons, questions, and the chatter of young voices. But for Mr. James, the usual noise sometimes carried a quiet pain. At recess, the hallways filled with laughter and chatter, but Mr. James felt a different kind of sound: the whispers about his car. He knew they were there, even if the words weren't always loud. It was like a cloud hanging over him, small but heavy. On this particular day, the teasing grew louder than usual. A group of students, standing near the lockers, were talking about the old car. They used words that made Mr. James's heart ache. "Who drives that ancient thing?" one student joked. "It looks like it might break down any second," said another. Mr. James tried to ignore them, focusing on his books. But the words were impossible to block out completely. Later, in the teacher's lounge, he overheard a conversation between two teachers. "Did you see his car today? Looks like it belongs in a museum," one whispered with a small laugh. The other nodded quietly, not noticing that Mr. James was standing just a few feet away. The laughter stung. It was not just from the students; even adults could be unkind. Despite this, Mr. James never lost his calm. He believed that kindness was stronger than laughter that hurt. So, he smiled gently and went back to his work. But inside, the hurt stayed. After school, Mr. James stayed late to prepare lessons for the next day. He wanted to be ready for his students, those who needed extra help, those who loved to learn, and even those who sometimes made fun of him. While organizing papers, his thoughts drifted to the car again. It was a small, quiet vehicle, nothing like the shiny, new cars many of his colleagues drove. It had scratches on the doors, dents on the bumper, and the paint had faded in many places. Some days, the engine made strange noises, and the windows didn't roll down smoothly. But it was reliable. It was the same car his father had given him before he passed away. Mr. James remembered how his father had always worked hard, saving every penny to buy that car. He wanted Mr. James to have something that could help him in his life, no matter how small. It was a symbol of love and sacrifice. The old car was more than just a way to get to school; it was a part of Mr. James's story. The next day, things got worse. As Mr. James walked through the schoolyard, a group of students gathered near the gate. They saw him coming and immediately started laughing. "Hey, Mr. James. Are you taking your antique car to class again?" one called out, loud enough for many to hear. Another student added, "Maybe he's going to a museum, not school." Laughter erupted among the group, and some other students nearby giggled as well. Mr. James felt the familiar sting of embarrassment. His cheeks flushed red, but he kept walking. He did not want to make a scene or show that he was hurt. Inside the classroom, he closed the door gently behind him. He took a deep breath, trying to clear his mind. Today, he would focus on his lesson, not the teasing. He began the class with a smile. "Good morning, everyone," he said warmly. The students quieted down, some still whispering but mostly paying attention. Mr. James knew that many students were good kids, curious and eager to learn. But sometimes, they got caught up in the group's teasing and forgot how their words could hurt. During the lesson, a quiet girl named Mia sat near the front. She listened carefully and wrote down notes. Mr. James noticed her focus and smiled. He had seen her looking at him differently lately, with curiosity, not judgment. After class, Mia stayed behind. "Mr. James," she said softly, I heard what some kids said about your car. I'm sorry. Mr. James looked surprised but grateful. Thank you, Mia, he replied kindly. Sometimes, people say things without thinking. Mia nodded. I think your car is special. It's not about how it looks but what it means. Mr. James smiled, feeling warmth in his chest. You're very kind. Thank you for saying that. Mia smiled back and left the room, leaving Mr. James with a small hope that not everyone saw him only by his car. Over the next few days, the teasing continued, but so did the quiet support from some students like Mia. They began to ask questions about his lessons, share their own stories, and even protect him from some of the harsher jokes. Mr. James felt the balance slowly shifting. One afternoon, during a staff meeting, the principal spoke about kindness and respect. Our school should be a place where everyone feels safe and valued, she said firmly. No one should be made fun of because of what they have or don't have. Mr. James listened carefully. The words felt like a shield, protecting him and others from unfair judgment. After the meeting, one of the teachers who had laughed before approached Mr. James. I'm sorry for what I said about your car, she said quietly. It was thoughtless. Mr. James nodded, accepting the apology. Thank you. It means a lot. That day, he realized something important: people could change if given a chance. Even though the car was old and worn, Mr. James's heart was strong. His dedication to teaching, his kindness, and his quiet courage were the things that truly mattered. As the weeks passed, more students started to see beyond the car's dents and scratches. They saw the teacher who cared deeply for them, who never gave up on anyone, and who believed in the power of learning. One morning, a student came up to Mr. James with a small drawing. It's your car, she said shyly. But I made it look bright and new. Mr. James laughed softly and thanked her. The drawing was colorful, full of life, and full of hope, just like he wanted his students to be. He looked out the window at his old car parked outside and whispered to himself, one day, they'll understand. For now, he would keep teaching, loving, and believing. Because sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who carry their stories quietly, like an old car driving faithfully through every day. The school halls buzzed with noise as usual, but Mr. James carried a quiet calm inside him. He had grown used to the teasing, though it still hurt sometimes. What kept him going was the story behind his old car, a story he rarely shared but held close to his heart. That afternoon, after school ended, Mr. James sat at his desk, flipping through some old photographs he had brought from home. One picture showed a younger version of himself, smiling beside his father and the same old car. The car looked just as worn then, but it was special to both of them. His thoughts drifted back to those days. Years ago, when Mr. James was just starting his teaching career, his father handed him the keys to that car. It was not new or expensive, but it was the only car the family owned. His father was a humble man who had worked as a carpenter, spending long hours building furniture to support the family. Take good care of this car, his father had said. It's more than metal and wheels. It's a symbol of hard work and love. Mr. James remembered how his father had saved money bit by bit to buy the car, putting aside every extra penny instead of spending it on himself. His father believed that success wasn't about fancy things but about honesty and kindness. The car carried memories too: family trips to the countryside, moments of laughter, and quiet talks about dreams and hopes. After his father passed away, the car became a reminder of those precious times and the lessons he taught. Now, whenever the car sputtered or made strange noises, Mr. James didn't feel frustrated. Instead, he smiled quietly, knowing it still held a piece of his father's heart. The next morning, a new chance came for Mr. James to share his story, even if only a little. As the students filed into his classroom, Mia came up and asked, "Mr. James, can you tell us why your car is so old?" The question caught him off guard, but in a good way. It showed that some students were curious, not mocking. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Well," he began, "this car belonged to my father. He worked very hard to buy it and taught me many important things about life. This car is a symbol of all that he gave me: his love, his lessons, and his strength." The students listened quietly. Some nodded, others looked thoughtful. Mr. James continued, "Sometimes, things might not look perfect on the outside, but what really matters is what's inside the heart and the story behind it." Mia smiled brightly. "That's beautiful, Mr. James." Throughout the day, several students came by to ask questions or share their own family stories. The classroom felt warmer, closer, as if the students were beginning to see their teacher not just as a person with an old car but as someone with a story, a person with feelings and history. Even some teachers noticed the change. Mrs. Patel, a kind woman who taught math, stopped by during lunch. "I heard what you told the students today," she said softly. "It was brave to share your story. It helps everyone understand you better." Mr. James smiled. "Thank you, Mrs. Patel. I think everyone has a story worth telling." That afternoon, as the school day ended, Mr. James walked out to his car. He paused, looking at the familiar dents and scratches. He ran his hand gently over the worn hood. A group of students from the earlier teasing crowd passed by. One of them, Jake, stopped and looked at the car differently than before. "Hey, Mr. James," Jake said quietly. "I never knew there was so much behind your car. It's kind of special." Mr. James smiled and nodded. "It is special to me." Jake looked away shyly. "Sorry for making fun before." "It's okay," Mr. James said kindly. "Sometimes, we don't understand things until we learn the story." That small moment of understanding meant a lot. As Mr. James drove home that evening, the sun setting behind the trees, he thought about how important it was to see beyond the surface, whether it was a person, a car, or a situation. True value was not in appearance but in meaning. At home, he placed the old photo of him and his father on the table and smiled. The car was more than just old metal. It was a bridge to the past, a symbol of love, and a reminder that sometimes the quietest things carry the deepest stories. The school was alive with chatter and footsteps as students moved between classes. Mr. James stood by his classroom door, greeting his students with his usual gentle smile. He noticed Mia walking in slowly, her eyes bright with a thoughtful look. Mia had always been quiet but observant. Unlike many of her classmates, she didn't laugh or whisper about Mr. James's old car. Instead, she seemed to think deeply about what was behind the jokes. After class, Mia stayed behind, waiting until the other students had left. She approached Mr. James hesitantly. "Mr. James," she began softly, "I wanted to say thank you for being kind to everyone, even when some kids are not." Mr. James looked at her with surprise and warmth. "Thank you, Mia. That means a lot." Mia shifted her weight and looked down for a moment before continuing. "I heard the kids laughing about your car. I don't think it's fair." Mr. James sighed quietly but smiled. "Sometimes, people say things when they don't understand. But that's okay. I try to focus on the things that matter, like teaching and helping my students." Mia nodded. "I want to help. Maybe if more kids knew the story, they would stop laughing." Her words touched Mr. James deeply. Here was a young girl, small but strong, who wanted to make a difference. "Would you like to hear the story?" he asked gently. Mia's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." Mr. James invited her to sit down at his desk. He began to tell her about the car, how it was a gift from his father, who had worked hard to buy it, and how the car carried memories of love and lessons about life. Mia listened carefully, her face growing serious. When he finished, she smiled. "It's not just a car, is it?" It's a part of your family. Mr. James nodded. Exactly. And it reminds me every day to be patient and kind, no matter what others think. Mia sat quietly for a moment. Then she said, I want to help others see that too. Maybe we can do something together. Mr. James was curious. What do you have in mind? Mia thought for a moment. Maybe we can share your story with the class. We could have a project where everyone tells something important about their family or something they love. It could help people understand each other better. Mr. James smiled broadly. That's a wonderful idea, Mia. It will teach everyone to look beyond the surface. The next day, Mr. James announced the new project to the class. I want you all to share something important about yourselves or your family. It could be a story, a picture, or something that means a lot to you. At first, some students looked confused. But Mia stood up and shared a small story about her grandmother and a special quilt she had made. Other students began to open up too, talking about their pets, their favorite hobbies, and their family traditions. As the days passed, the classroom changed. The students became more thoughtful, listening carefully to each other's stories. The teasing about Mr. James's car slowly stopped. Instead, students began to see him as someone with a history and feeling someone who deserved respect. One afternoon, Mia approached Mr. James again. Some kids told me they didn't know you were so kind and brave, she said shyly. I told them your car isn't what matters. Mr. James felt his heart warm. Thank you, Mia. You're helping change things here. Mia smiled. I think everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are. Mr. James looked around his classroom, at the students now chatting and sharing, and felt hopeful. Maybe, he thought, this was the beginning of something new, a place where kindness and understanding could grow. That evening, as he walked to his old car, he saw a small group of students waiting nearby. One of them, Jake, held a piece of paper. Mr. James, Jake said nervously, we made this for you. It was a colorful poster, decorated with drawings of the old car and kind words like thank you, you inspire us, and kindness matters. Mr. James was speechless. He looked at the students, his eyes shining. This means more to me than you know, he said quietly. Thank you. The students smiled and waved goodbye before heading inside. Mr. James sat in his car that evening, the engine humming softly. He looked at the poster taped to the dashboard and smiled. He thought about his father, the lessons, and the journey that had brought him here. And he knew that, sometimes, the greatest strength came from the smallest acts of kindness and understanding. The days at Willowbrook Middle School started to feel different for Mr. James. The laughter about his old car had quieted, replaced by a gentle respect that surprised him. It was as if the stories shared in the classroom had created a small change, a better understanding among the students. One bright morning, as Mr. James prepared for his English class, he noticed a new energy in the room. The students were chatting about their projects, eager to share what they had brought. There were drawings, photographs, and even a few small objects, each telling a story of family, dreams, or memories. Mr. James smiled quietly. This was more than just a school project. It was a lesson about empathy, kindness, and seeing the world through someone else's eyes. As the class began, Mia raised her hand and asked if she could share her project first. She stood in front of the room holding a small, worn-out book. This book belonged to my grandmother, she explained. She used to read stories to me when I was little. It reminds me that stories connect us all. The students listened carefully, and when Mia finished, they clapped softly. One by one, other students shared their stories. There was David, who brought a photo of his family's garden, explaining how his parents taught him to care for plants. Sarah spoke about her love for painting, showing pictures of her artwork. Even Jake, who had once been part of the group teasing Mr. James, told a story about his grandfather's old watch, something he treasured. Mr. James felt a warmth in his heart. This was the moment he had hoped for, a classroom filled with respect, sharing, and understanding. After the presentations, Mr. James decided to share more about his own story. He told the class about his father, the old car, and how they symbolized hard work and love. He explained how important it was to look beyond what was on the surface and to value the person inside. The students were quiet, absorbing every word. When he finished, Mia raised her hand again. "Mr. James, do you think it's okay to be different? Like, not having the newest things?" Mr. James smiled gently. "Absolutely, Mia. Being different is what makes each of us special. It's not about having the newest or most expensive things. It's about kindness, respect, and the way we treat others." The bell rang, signaling the end of the class, but the students seemed reluctant to leave. They gathered their things slowly, still talking softly about their stories. Outside the classroom, a few students approached Mr. James. "Thanks for sharing your story," Jake said quietly. "I'm sorry for how I acted before." Mr. James nodded. "Thank you, Jake. It's never too late to change." The school day ended, but the lesson went beyond the walls of the classroom. At home that evening, Mr. James sat by the window, looking out at the street. His old car stood quietly in the driveway, its dents and scratches visible in the fading light. He thought about the journey he had been on from the first days of teasing to this new time of understanding. It had not been easy, but he felt proud. Not because of the car, but because of the courage to keep going, to stay kind, and to believe in his students. The next morning, something unexpected happened. As Mr. James walked to his car, he saw a small group of students waiting for him. They handed him a box wrapped in bright paper. "We wanted to say thank you," Mia said shyly. Mr. James opened the box carefully. Inside was a new set of seat covers for his old car, simple but clean and colorful. "It's a small gift," Jake explained, "to make your car a little nicer." Mr. James felt tears welling up. It was not the gift itself but the thought behind it that touched him deeply. He looked at the students and said, "Thank you. This means a lot more than you can imagine." The students smiled, happy to have made a difference. As Mr. James drove to school that day, the seat covers brightened the inside of the car. But what made his heart shine was knowing that respect and kindness had grown, one small step at a time. He realized that sometimes, the best lessons were not in textbooks but in the stories we share and the understanding we build. And for Mr. James, that was the greatest gift of all. The change at Willowbrook Middle School was growing stronger with each passing day. Mr. James could feel it not just in the way the students treated him, but in the air around the school. There was a new sense of respect and kindness that hadn't been there before. One morning, as Mr. James pulled into the school parking lot, he noticed something unusual. Parked near his old car was a shiny, new car. It wasn't a luxury car, but it was modern and well kept. A teacher he didn't know well was getting out of it. Mr. James smiled politely as the teacher walked past, but inside, he felt a quiet confidence. The days when people judged him for the car he drove felt like they were behind him. Inside the school, the atmosphere was different too. Students greeted Mr. James warmly as he walked through the halls. Mia and Jake waved from the classroom window, and even some of the quieter students gave a small smile or nod of respect. In his English class, Mr. James prepared for another day of sharing and learning. The project about stories from home had continued to bring the class closer. Every day, students grew more comfortable opening up about their lives. One day, during a quiet moment after class, Mr. James sat with Mia and Jake at the back of the room. "I never thought it would get this good," Jake said, smiling. "I used to think making fun of you was funny, but now I see how wrong I was." Mia nodded. "Me too. Your story helped us understand more than just your car. It helped us understand kindness." Mr. James looked at them with pride. You both helped make this change happen. Sometimes, it just takes a few people to start something good. Later that week, the principal announced a special assembly for the whole school. There was excitement in the air. Rumors spread that the assembly would be about kindness and respect, but no one knew exactly what to expect. When the day came, the auditorium was filled with students, teachers, and even some parents. The principal stepped onto the stage and began to speak about the importance of kindness and treating others with respect. Then, she invited Mr. James to the stage. With a mixture of nerves and pride, Mr. James walked up to the microphone. He looked out at the crowd, seeing the faces of students who once teased him, now listening respectfully. Thank you for giving me this chance, he began. I want to share a lesson I have learned not just about teaching, but about kindness, respect, and seeing the person inside. He told the story of his old car, the memories it held, and the journey he had been on from feeling mocked and hurt to finding understanding and friendship. The room was silent, hanging on his every word. When he finished, the principal stood and applauded. Soon, the entire auditorium joined in. That moment felt like a new beginning. After the assembly, many students came to thank Mr. James. Some shared their own stories of feeling different or judged. One shy student said, I didn't think anyone would care about what I have, but now I feel like I belong. Mr. James smiled warmly. Everyone belongs here. Every story matters. As the school year moved forward, the changes continued. The teasing stopped completely, replaced by friendship and respect. Even the teachers seemed different, more united in their support of kindness. One afternoon, as Mr. James was getting ready to leave, Mia and Jake ran up to him. We have one more surprise for you, Mia said, holding a small box. Inside was a framed photo of Mr. James standing beside his old car, surrounded by smiling students. We wanted to show how much you mean to us, Jake said. Mr. James felt tears come to his eyes. Thank you, all of you. You've given me a gift more valuable than anything else: respect and friendship. As he drove home that evening, his old car felt like a proud symbol not just of the past, but of hope and kindness that could change the future. He realized that sometimes, the hardest journeys led to the most beautiful destinations. The last days of the school year were filled with a warm, quiet happiness at Willowbrook Middle School. Mr. James felt it every morning as he arrived, parking his old car among the others in the lot. His car was still the same, worn and old, but now it carried a new meaning, not just for him but for everyone who knew its story. The project about stories and kindness had become a tradition in his class. New students joined, and old students continued to share their stories. It was more than a lesson in English, it was a lesson in life. One Friday afternoon, just before the final bell, Mia came to Mr. James's desk with a big smile. Mr. James, she said excitedly, there's something happening after school. Everyone wants you to come. Mr. James raised his eyebrows. What is it? It's a surprise. But I can tell you it's about your car. Curious and a little nervous, Mr. James agreed. After the last class ended, he followed Mia through the halls to the school gym. The doors opened, and he stepped inside. The gym was decorated with colorful banners and balloons. Students, teachers, and even some parents were gathered, all smiling and waiting for him. At the front, a large poster showed a drawing of Mr. James's old car, surrounded by handprints of students and the words, "Thank you for teaching us more than words." Mr. James felt his heart swell with emotion. He looked around at the faces, some familiar, some new, all there because of the kindness they had learned together. The principal stepped forward. Mr. James, we want to thank you for being an amazing teacher. Not just for what you teach in the classroom, but for showing us how to be kind and respectful. Students began to present gifts, handmade cards, drawings, and even a small model of the old car, crafted carefully with paper and glue. Mia stepped up last, holding a small box. "This is from all of us," she said softly. "To remind you that your story matters." Mr. James opened the box slowly. Inside was a keychain, a tiny model of the old car, with a small tag that read, "Drive with pride." Tears filled his eyes. He stood quietly, feeling the warmth of the moment. "This means more than you know," he said, his voice thick with feeling. "When I started teaching here, I never imagined this. Thank you for seeing me not for the car I drive, but for who I am." The gym was filled with applause, and Mr. James looked at the students, proud of the journey they had made together. That night, as he drove home under the soft glow of streetlights, the little keychain swung gently from his rearview mirror. He thought about his father's words, how the car was more than just metal and wheels. It was a symbol of love, hard work, and kindness. And now, it was a symbol of respect. At home, Mr. James placed the keychain beside the photo of his father on the shelf. He smiled quietly, knowing that the true gift wasn't the old car or the keychain, but the lessons they had shared, lessons of empathy, courage, and seeing the beauty beneath the surface. The next morning, as he walked into the school, he felt lighter, happier. Because he knew he had helped create something that would last, a place where everyone could feel proud of who they were, no matter what they drove, wore, or looked like. And that was the greatest lesson of all.